Justin Baldoni's team has issued a response in opposition to dismiss the New York Times.
How the New York Times actively vouched for the veracity of its false narrative.
We actually want all evidence to come out that's proper and appropriate evidence.
So we kind of knew this was coming, didn't we? The collusion argument.
I looked through every document, every email, every text message.
That's the whole point of a lawsuit, is you just start with allegations, and allegations are not evidence. They're just statements of fact that help establish this is the claim that I'm bringing.
Look, there's a lot of factual determinations that need to be made here, not legal determinations. And because there's factual determinations, you got to leave it to the jury. You got to give a jury the property.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're just saying, look, just let the facts decide. And the trier of fact in any case is going to be the jury. Unless it's a bench trial, then it's a judge. But this is not. This is a jury trial.
What if everything you thought you knew about Blake Lively's big Hollywood scandal was a lie? Picture this: a star-studded lawsuit, explosive allegations, and a media giant caught in the crossfire, only for it all to unravel in the most jaw-dropping way. By the time we're done, you'll be wondering who's really pulling the strings here. Let's dive into the chaos.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's what we see, but I do have to say that the arguments in this opposition were really good.
Baldoni's team drops a massive $400 million suit on Blake and a lawsuit against the New York Times. Then they publish 170 pages of perfectly documented texts and emails between all the parties that basically show Blake to be the aggressor. Here's the proof.
Blake Lively kicked things off with a bang, filing a lawsuit against her It Ends With Us co-star and director Justin Baldoni and Wayfair Studios. She claimed it was a nightmare on set, sexual harassment, body shaming, even accusations about breastfeeding disputes. It sounded like a textbook Hollywood horror story, the kind that gets everyone rooting for the underdog. Social media lit up, fans rallied, and for a hot minute, Blake had the world in her corner. She painted herself as the victim of a toxic set, and honestly, it was the perfect play for sympathy. But looks can be deceiving, and this story was about to take a wild turn.
A campaign to tarnish Lively after she alleged that Justin Baldoni, her co-star and director, and Jamie Heath, the producer, had engaged in misconduct while shooting the film.
Enter the New York Times, dropping a bombshell article and video in December 2024 titled, "We Can Bury Anyone Inside a Hollywood Smear Machine." They didn't just report Blake's claims, they made them sound like gospel. With thousands of documents supposedly reviewed, the Times slapped their gold star credibility on her story, framing Justin and Wayfair as the bad guys. For Blake's team, it was a dream come true, mainstream media backing her up like a courtroom verdict. The piece hit during the holiday buzz, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like she'd won the war before it even started. But something about that timing felt off, didn't it?
And that's what the New York Times is coming back and saying, look, we're not Blake Lively. We're not the ones making the allegation. We're just fairly reporting on what Blake is suing Justin and Wayfair for.
Then the cracks started showing. Fast. Justin's team dug in, and what they found was a whole lot of nothing. No texts, no emails, no smoking gun documents to back up Blake's claims. Zero proof of harassment, body shaming, or anything else she'd thrown out there. Her legal team started crumbling. Her lawyer, Merle Conant, bailed, leaving the case in shambles. Allegations are one thing, but without evidence, they're just hot air. Blake's camp had banked on public outrage to carry them, but as the holes in her story widened, it was clear this wasn't the slam dunk they'd hoped for. And what happened next would shock everyone.
If they're supposed to be the bastion of the journalism, right? But, if they had just said it's the opinion, would this have mattered? Will this factor in the fact that they did seemingly have this from?
Justin Baldoni didn't just sit back, he hit harder than anyone expected. His team dropped a 170-page legal release, packed with texts and emails that flipped the script entirely. Suddenly, Blake wasn't the victim, she was the aggressor. The docs painted her as orchestrating a smear campaign, with her PR crew allegedly hiring a crisis manager to tank Justin's rep. Then came the $400 million lawsuit against Blake and a separate suit against the New York Times. It wasn't just a defense, it was a full-on assault, shredding her claims to bits. Sexual harassment? Non-existent. Body shaming? Not a trace. This wasn't a counterpunch, it was a knockout blow. But that wasn't the whole story.
Admittedly based its article and video on its reporter's review of thousands of pages of documents and expressly credited Lively's claims, framing them as having been verified by the New York Times' own investigation.
The New York Times found itself in the hot seat when Justin's lawyer, Brian Friedman, came swinging. He didn't just call them out, he accused them of straight-up bias, saying they didn't report facts. They vouched for Blake's narrative. Friedman's opposition to dismiss the Times from the case was a legal masterclass. He pointed to their holiday rush job, dropping the story on December 20th with a respond by noon tomorrow deadline for Justin's side. Convenient timing, right? The piece was already locked and loaded, leaving no room for a real defense. Friedman argued the Times crossed the line from journalism to advocacy, stripping away their fair report shield. If he's right, they're in deep trouble. And it's about to get messy.
And so now they're saying like, hey, we tried to fact check. We gave you the opportunity. Oh, you didn't respond. Oh, if you would have responded, we would have maybe thought of things differently. But hey, we just went with what we had, so we can't be sued. So this is what they're doing.
Now, let's talk jurisdiction, because this is where it gets juicy. Friedman's pushing hard to keep this fight in California, not New York. Why? California's defamation laws are a goldmine, offering more protection and bigger damages than New York's. Justin and Wayfair are Hollywood players. Their careers live and breathe in Cali. When the Times published that story, the fallout hit hardest where they work, not where the paper's printed. Friedman's betting on California's false light claims to rake in the cash and make a statement. It's not just about winning. It's about sending a message to anyone who messes with their reps. And what happened next would shock everyone.
So here's why he's suing them. It's super creative. They said, evening of December 20th, hey, Justin, here's all this horrible stuff we're going to print about you. You have until tomorrow at noon. We'd love to hear your response. He engages with them. He says, okay.
Celebrity power took center stage as the drama thickened. Lady C, a no-nonsense commentator, blasted Blake and the Times on social media, calling it a carefully crafted PR stunt to torch Justin's career. She's not alone. Rumors are swirling that Blake leaned on her A-list pal Taylor Swift to sway the narrative. Her PR team allegedly pressured Wayfair to take the fall, while the Times played along like puppets. Friedman's not letting it slide. He's gunning for actual malice, claiming the Times knew Blake's story was shaky but ran it anyway. If that sticks, it's not just sloppy reporting, it's deliberate damage. The deeper this goes, the more it feels like a Hollywood script gone rogue. So, where does this leave us? Blake's case started with a roar, but might end in a whimper. With no evidence, a fleeing lawyer, and Justin's team exposing every flaw, her golden reputation's hanging by a thread. The New York Times thought they'd crowned her the victor, but now they're fighting to stay out of court. If Friedman gets his trial, a jury, not headlines, will decide who's telling the truth. Will Blake's star power save her, or will the facts bury her deeper than any PR spin could fix? One thing's clear, this isn't just about a lawsuit. It's about who we trust when the cameras stop rolling. What do you think? Can Blake pull off the comeback, or is this the end of her Hollywood fairy tale?